Hello and welcome to Grief Seeds, a podcast where you'll find insights, reframings, metaphors, and visualizations, all known as grief seeds, to help you cultivate growth and healing in your life after loss. My name is Shelby Forsythia. I'm an intuitive grief guide and author, and on this show, I'll share insights from my interactions with clients, wise words from fellow grievers, and personal stories from my own life, with the hope that they transform your grief as they have transformed mine. Because even when it doesn't feel like it, we are planting the seeds of growth in the midst of great pain and heartache. Your grief is welcome here. Hi there, grief growers, and welcome to another episode of Grief Seeds. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of trouble, some seasons more than others, with the idea of surrender, or the notion of, or let's say the practice of surrender, just releasing the things that I don't know, that I can't figure out, that I don't have a place for in the aftermath of my mother's death. And this comes up kind of on an existential level, like, why do bad things happen to good people? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? What's the meaning of all this? Why did this happen when it did? But can also come down to a more practical level. I recently hosted a workshop over on Patreon about making decisions after loss. And sometimes the way that grief works is it puts things in stark relief, our priorities, the ways that we value people, jobs, places, roles in our life. And sometimes surrender comes down to more practical things that we don't know. Should I leave my job? Should I hire a caregiver? Should I move across the country? Because life is short, and I've seen that in the death of my person. Surrender is not an easy thing when it comes to loss, but really when it comes to anything. And it's not something we're taught by society, family, friends, the media to do or to practice. And so when our brains are whirling into the stratosphere in grief and loss, trying to figure out where this all goes or what this means, it can be really common to feel an intense pressure to find an answer, to know for sure with some level of certainty, because certainty in our society is trustworthy. Certainty is a solid foundation. Certainty is something you can stand on. It's safe. And one of the most frustrating parts about grief is we are constantly taking a bath in uncertainty. We are marinating in the reality that we live in a world where anything can happen. We could win the lottery or fall in love tomorrow, and someone that we absolutely adore with every single fiber of our being could die. And we know that intimately to be true, having experienced the losses that we faced. So how do we practice surrender? What does that mean? I was working with a client once, and she exists in this beautiful world where she knows a lot of things for sure. And there are things she knows for sure because of data, of numbers, of statistics, of graphs and charts and things that you can measurably show on paper. But she also knows things intuitively. She sees a paint color and knows that it's just right for the wall. It matches the furniture exactly. She sees a plant and can identify it on site. She drinks a glass of wine and knows exactly what to prepare to complement the many, many layers of flavor that go with it in the geographic region that it came from. She has many gifts, and all of them are based around or circled around this idea of knowing. And so loss for her was upending in so many ways, because the answer to a ton of questions in life after loss is, I don't know. Or I don't know yet. And so this exercise that we came up with for her, this mantra, was about surrender. How do I surrender to the fact that I don't know when the entirety of my life, my sheer existence is based on knowing, both intellectually and at a gut level? And I'll take an aside here and just let you know that if you're struggling to figure something out in the aftermath of loss, there's nothing wrong with you. That's not bad. Our heart's job in the aftermath of loss is to grieve, to have the emotional experiences that comes with grieving and losing and having something taken from us or choosing to step away from something. We can create losses as well as endure them. But our brain's job in the aftermath of loss is to figure out where it goes, to make meaning of the thing, I have a very dear friend who has autism, and she describes the inner workings of her mind as being a series of file cabinets and folders. And when she has a new experience that she doesn't really have a reference for, or has never really experienced, whether she's tasting a new dish at a restaurant or something happens within her friend or family group, like a major loss that she's never had to go through before, she'll tell me, I don't have a file for this yet. And I'm like, oh, what a wonderful way to see how the brain works in the aftermath of loss. Maybe we just don't have a file for this yet. So going back to my client whose entire existence is based on knowing, gut knowing and head knowing, experiencing loss and being, what the hell do I do with this? I don't know. That terrifying existence, that groundlessness of uncertainty. How do I surrender to the fact that this is true? We came up with this mantra for her, and maybe it's helpful to you. I trust that one day I will understand in a way that makes sense to me. I trust that one day I'll have an answer for this. I trust that one day I'll have the clarity that I'm seeking so vehemently right now. I trust that one day I will have more information than is accessible to me in this moment. And what I love about this mantra, specifically for my client, but also for you, is that it gives you this freedom. It releases you from needing to know everything right now, in this moment, by the end of the day. There is such a pressure we face to figure out where we're going in the aftermath of loss, to get back on track, or even to know who we are or what we're becoming as people in the aftermath of loss. And sometimes we just don't know yet. We don't have enough data. We don't have enough evidence. We haven't had enough feelings about it. We haven't had enough experience with the experience of grief to draw any conclusions. We're not ready to be scientists about it yet. We are still collecting information. Or, in some cases, we are still waiting for more information to arrive. Maybe it's just not time to know. And that's not our fault for not knowing. So as you struggle with this practice of surrendering to uncertainty, which is such a common struggle in the aftermath of loss, may you know that it is not your job to figure out or know everything today. Free yourself, release yourself, untie yourself from that obligation, from that pressure, from that story, that's your job. Because your job, your real job, your true job, in the experience of grief is simply to grieve, to have the experience of grieving, to feel it in your heart, to work to make sense of it in your brain, but not relentlessly, not in a punishing way, to experience it in your spirit on a higher, maybe more existential level, if that's something that's true for you, and to caretake for your grief as it shows up in your body. These are your jobs in grief. And as you are experiencing all of them, as you are performing all of these jobs, heart, mind, spirit, and body. To surrender to all of the uncertainty, to all of the information you don't know yet, to all of the answers you don't or can't possibly have. And to wait, to abide, to stand by as more information is coming to you every single second in your grief. Deep breath in here and out. Oh, my dear grief grower, may you free yourself from the weight, from the obligation, from the story, from the pressure, from the narrative that you must have all the answers right now, that you have to figure out where you're going, how you're getting there, what time you're leaving, and the person that you are on the journey. You do not have to know the answers to that today or even tomorrow. In a world that has broken your trust, may you begin again by trusting that something is on its way. I trust that one day I will understand in a way that makes sense to me. I trust that one day I'll know where this goes. I trust that one day I will have answers that I don't have right now. I trust that one day I will have more information than I'm able to access in this moment. May you know, may you realize that your lack of answers, that your lack of information is not a failure on your part, but a reality of grieving. To be bombarded with all of the answers and all of the information and all of the knowing all at once would be overwhelming, to say the least. So it's okay and it's normal to not know right away, to have your default response to questions be, I'm not sure. I don't know yet. Here's what I have right now, today, in this moment. Here's who I am right now, today, in this moment. Deep breath in here and out. Thank you so much for joining me today. So that's all for this episode of Grief Seeds. Thank you so much for listening today. You can find additional grief support at shelbyforsythia.com or by following me on social media at shelbyforsythia on Facebook and Instagram. If this podcast helped you in your life after loss, please leave a review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And be sure to share Grief Seeds with a friend, because you never know what someone you love is going through. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for financially keeping this podcast on the air. If you'd like to support Grief Seeds on Patreon through a yearly or monthly pledge, you can do so at patreon.com/shelbyforsythia. My Patreon supporters get access to behind-the-scenes content, including a once-a-month grief support call with me and 5 90-minute workshops with topics decided by grievers themselves. Again, that website is patreon.com/shelbyforsythia. Music for Grief Seeds is performed by Addie Goldstein. As always, my dear grief growers, it was beautiful sharing this space and time with you today. I see you. I am so proud of you and the work that you're doing in the world, and I love you. Because even through grief, we are growing.